Put an anchor in a garage door handle before I put on my resistance bands to use. These bands are super versatile and very portable, and I can show you many different areas you can use it. Do it outside, inside, on the house, in nature, anywhere you are, you can use them. Here I'm doing a chopper, a rotation from low to high. This movement is really useful for rotation, strength. You can use this for tennis, golf, kickboxing, boxing, anything that requires a swing, a rotation of the body, throw, shoveling, chopping wood, whatever you like. So many useful applications for this movement. So, shooting the video from a different angle. I thought this lighting might be a little bit better at this angle. Same exercise as before, the low to high chopper. I'm using also a pelvic and hip rotation as I'm doing this chopper. You also could do choppers with a minimal leg movement, only moving your upper torso and spine. But I generally like to do it with a pelvic and hip movement and a foot pivot, because it's a lot easier on your spinal column, spinal movement muscles. Inhale as you go back, exhale as you pull out and rotate upwards for this one. This exercise is a low row. This is a basic lat and middle back movement. It's a very powerful movement. You can use a lot of weight and resistance with this one. So I added a lot of bands for this particular movement, since it's using the big latissimus dorsi muscle of the back and the mid trapezius, biceps. So it's a very powerful movement. Very important movement, especially if you like to hold on to things, do grappling, rock climbing, pull-ups, anything that requires pulling and hanging on. This movement will help strengthen the grappling muscles, the hand grips. So this is a incline press. This uses the front deltoids, upper chest, biceps and triceps a lot. So I am supersetting the incline press with a high row for the rear deltoids. I bring my elbows up high. Exhale as I pull up. Inhale as I lower the weight forwards. Try to keep your torso stationary and your legs nice and stable. Supersetting again with the incline chest press. A little bit heavier resistance. Everything I'm doing about 10, 12 repetitions, depending on how my muscles feel. I'm also doing approximately 3 sets of each exercise and resting about 20 seconds to 30 seconds between each set. One more set of incline chest press. Keep your staggered stance for this one. Allows you to keep your torso more stable so you don't waver back and forth. So you can concentrate on your arm and chest a little bit better, shoulders. Last one for the high row rear delt movement. Exhale, pulling back. Inhale, going forward. Palms are facing down for this one. You also could do it with a parallel grip where the palms face each other. I switch it on and off different workouts. So I set up the next exercise on a small tree, on a branch that's a little bit higher than my shoulder. Now I'm doing another chopper movement, this time starting from the high to low, about shoulder height to opposite hip height. Rotating my torso, my pelvis, and pivoting my feet as I go along. So generally when I'm holding on, the hand that's pulling is on the inside and the hand that's pushing is on the outside, so you got a better grip for pulling and pushing. So I'm also doing 3 sets of these, resting about 20 seconds in between the sets. Exhaling as I pull downwards, inhaling as I bring it back upwards. It's a beautiful sunny day for a workout. It was a big storm the night before, and all these plants had plenty of water to saturate it. Some of the ground was slightly wet, but not too bad. Always make sure you breathe really well as you exercise. Never hold your breath unless you're doing a power lift that requires it, like the super hairy squat. But in general, you should not hold your breath. So here I always generally exhale as I'm exerting a lot of strength, and inhaling as I'm retracting or going back to the beginning of the exercise. So going forward and down, I'm exhaling, going up, I'm inhaling. If you don't breathe properly, you can get lightheaded. If you hyperventilate, you can get lightheaded, and of course, if you hold your breath too long, you can black out from lack of oxygen. So always breathe well for these exercises. This is a single arm fly for my pectoralis chest muscle, going from a slightly higher than shoulder height to a little bit lower than my chest. I'm crossing the midline of the body for this exercise. You can stop at the midline, but I cross over to the other side, so it helps me get a full contraction of the pectoralis major muscle. I'm rotating and turning my head as I'm doing this, but you don't have to do that. You can just look straight ahead. So, almost done. Doing about one more set. You can do as many sets as you like, but I recommend doing at least 2 to 4 sets for every exercise. and about 6 to 20 repetitions for most exercises. For this particular exercise, I just kept going from one side to the next. Since I'm only doing one side at a time, my other side got to rest as I was doing one side, so I didn't have to rest totally between sides. It feels great to pump up your muscles with a light medium weight sometimes, just to feel your muscle burn a little bit without doing any damage. So you're burning a lot of calories, but you're not causing too much muscular soreness if you use mostly light weights and medium weights. So this is a stiff arm pull down. Works the tricep sartorius muscle between the pec and lat and the latissimus dorsi. It also works the lower and middle trapezius and rhomboids of the middle back. I generally like to lean forward for this exercise so I could bring my arms up a little further, have a better range of motion. Unless you have a super high ceiling or attach the resistance to a really high apparatus, and you could stand straight and then pull from overhead straight down, then you can also do that. But since I attach this resistance bands to just slightly higher than my shoulder, I need to lean forward to get a fuller range of motion for my shoulders, so my back can work a little bit harder. I'm also going from each side to side without resting much, because one side gets to rest while the other one works, since I'm only doing one arm at a time. Exhale as I pull down and back. Inhale as I lift up and over. All right. Finishing up for my last set here. Try to go nice and steady. Don't go too fast. I go down, and a lot of times I pause a little bit in the bottom position for this exercise to keep my lats and my triceps contracted before I bring it up again. So this is a single arm tricep extension. I generally like to do this particular movement with a cable single arm when I'm practicing my throws and spear throws for my obstacle course races. Because when you're throwing a spear, you generally only use one arm at a time, and you generally only use your dominant arm, which for me is my right arm, but I also work my left arm just to keep my triceps equal strength. This movement also requires you keep your torso very steady and your pelvis and your legs pretty steady. So you're also working your legs and your core, your abs a lot with this movement. I do it with a very slight rotation and turn of my torso, but minimal, because I want to keep it steady, and when I'm throwing something, I want my aim to be fairly stable. So I'll use one arm a lot of times to guide my aim, and the other arm I'll throw to where my other hand is pointing, so I have a target. Of course, when you're throwing a spear or a ball or anything, it generally goes in an arc, not in a straight line. So if you're throwing something in front of you, a target, you generally aim slightly higher than your target. So when your object reaches your target, it doesn't drop below the target. But it takes a lot of practice. Just like when you're shooting a basketball, you don't just throw directly at the hoop, but you have to throw in an arc or parabola. If you're familiar with that term in math. It's quite interesting. When I first learned it in 7th grade or 8th grade, one of those grades, I learned about the parabola and how objects travel through space when it's thrown. It doesn't go in straight lines or even perfect arcs or perfect semicircles. It's kind of like a parabola. And sometimes it doesn't even go in a parabola. It goes in a slight arc and then drops straight down. So, weird, but that works. A lot of different objects work differently depending on how you throw it. And wind resistance and other things. How heavy the object is and the shape of the object, of course. So here I'm doing a single arm curl. It's kind of like doing a preacher curl, keeping my forearm in motion and my upper arm stationary. Also my torso should be fairly stationary. Try not to use your torso to rock back and forth, or else you're cheating and not using your biceps as much. For this one, I'm keeping my palms facing up as I'm curling in the beginning. Alright, so here I put the resistance band low on a wooden post, and I'm just doing forward lunges, holding it with one hand. It's kind of like asymmetrical resistance, but I'm also going to do it and switch and use the other hand, and then I'm going to do it right behind my back for even resistance between my legs. I'm doing about 12 on each leg, or 24 total for a set. Then I switch the hand position and I do it again. This exercise is quite good to build your quadriceps, hamstrings, and glutes. I like doing this particular movement for my shots in wrestling and jiu-jitsu. When you're taking someone down, you got to go down, get low, change levels before you can grab a person's leg or hips, before you can take them and push them sideways or pick them up off the foot and dump them on the ground. But if you're not doing wrestling or jiu-jitsu or any grappling arts, this is also great for running, power and speed. If you're running uphill, even straight forward, you need a lot of strength in your hamstrings and glutes and quads to power you forwards. I learned the hard way that when you're running downhill, your quadriceps and your knees get a lot of beating. So when I first started doing my obstacle course races, going downhill, my quadriceps would start cramping towards the last half or last quarter of the race, because going downhill beat up my quadricep muscles in the front of the thigh so badly, and I didn't practice enough downhill running or lunges to prepare my leg muscles, my quadricep muscles, for that kind of beating. So now anytime I'm doing legs, I make sure I do lots of lunges, so it prepares my leg muscles for downhill beating. So this variation of the lunge is the side lunge. I do with one knee bent and one leg straight. You can also do side lunges with both legs bent. But this version uses one leg more than the other, a lot more actually. I also keep my knee and my foot pointed straight ahead instead of sideways. Some people do it when they turn to the side or step to the side, they turn their knees and their foot outwards, but I generally don't do that because that for me feels like I'm still doing a forward lunge if I turn my leg too much. So I try to keep my leg pointing forwards as I go to the side. So my hip goes back, my knee and my foot points forwards instead of sideways. And it works a lot of my outer thighs, outer hip muscles, the gluteus medius minimus, and of course my inner thighs a little bit too. And if you go low enough, it also stretches your inner thighs a lot. So it's good to have some flexibility when you're doing these. Inhale, exhale up, inhale down, exhale up. The faster you go, the faster you should be breathing also. I generally exhale when I explode back up to the center and upwards. And inhale as I go down and to the side. These are single leg stiff deadlifts. I like to call these swans. You can call these also hip extensions. Some people call these also seesaws, because your torso and your single leg should be pretty straight and go about the same distance. So when your torso goes down 1 foot, your legs should go up 1 foot. I generally go into my leg and my torso is about parallel to the ground, give or take. If I like to be super strict, I like to keep my knee super straight, but for this one I didn't bring it that straight. So I changed the grip a little bit for this one, and I'm also doing one side at a time right now instead of alternating like before. Many ways to do it. Then I switch side, make sure you do both sides fairly evenly. Doesn't have to be perfectly even all the time, but try to keep a count in your head or out loud if you like, and try to keep both sides about the same count. Whatever your number is, 10, 12, 15, whatever you like. I do it until I feel slightly tired, and then I switch exercises or I rest for a while. So here I'm doing a tricep of the same exercise, different variations and different grips. Here I'm alternating legs and alternating grip, one hand at a time, and then the hand that's not holding the grip, I'm keeping it up just to counterbalance my leg. If you're super tired, you can also do a little rest pause where you just rest a little bit and then continue with more repetitions. So this is a diagonal curl. The good thing about resistance bands is you do not have to rely on gravity for the resistance, and you do many different angles for each exercise. So for a curl, you could do it from bottom up, sideways, diagonal, straight forward, hanging from the ceiling downwards. So many different ways you can do a curl with a resistance band or a cable that you cannot do with dumbbells or barbells, unless you totally change the angle of your whole body. Today was a medium day, like most days for me these days. Medium resistance, that is. I am increasing my sets and reps a lot these days just to increase my stamina. So when I'm doing my endurance races, my obstacle course races, my grappling, jiu-jitsu, or kickboxing, or anything like that, even swimming, running, I can have a lot more endurance and stamina so I can last longer. So that's my general goal these days, not just power and strength and size. So I like to go and do as long as I can do it and feel good about it. I generally stop when I feel pretty exhausted. This is a resistance band bent over tricep extension, commonly called a kickback, tricep kickback. This is very similar to doing a tricep press down from straight up and downwards. But in this particular angle, your upper arm and your rear deltoids get a lot more work because of gravity pulling your arm downwards. So you have to hold the upper arm more stationary. So you have to use your rear delts and your back a little bit and your triceps a little bit more just to hold your upper arm stationary. So they kind of burn a little bit more for this exercise than with a regular press down when you're standing straight up and down. So generally you can't use as much weight or resistance with the bent over kickbacks as you can with the upright press downs. But works the triceps great either way. So I do both. Anyway, that's all for today. Have a wonderful week.